Welcome everybody to the Jake Feinberg Show here in Wallkill, New York, and joined by my spiritual teacher, Tisziji Munoz. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You talk about how you incorporated humor. You talked about this gig you had that was humorous, but it's important for people to put humor in their musical vocabulary. How did you develop humor in your music?
Humor?
Humor.
So it's enjoyment. It's really enjoying what the music brings up. It brings up peace, it brings up bliss, it brings up love, and obviously good-naturedness. Humor is included in the good-naturedness. Right. So.
Can you talk about peace? What is peace to you?
Peace is, let's say, the absence of suffering, stress, tension, confusion, neuroses, suffering. And you can still experience peace, as I had friends who experienced peace on the battlefield of Vietnam, right? When their limbs are blown off, they still felt peace. So peace is original in terms of the human being. It's part of your inner reality. So peace is always waiting for you. So some people had to be blown away to get to peace. And so we need to get back to peace between one another and with our families, and keep the peace happening. So peace is the nature of the human spirit and soul. It is peaceful by nature.
How do you, in a monastic life, how do you keep peace with your family?
There is peace. It's not about keeping it. There's no fighting. So what is left when you have no fighting? We hope some peace. Yeah, so you keep the peace by avoiding fighting and skirmishes, unless you absolutely have to. So there's a warrior perception here. So yeah, I'd fight if I have to fight, but I'd rather not have to fight. So I'm smart enough to avoid the situation of fights.
You know, we were up here doing some work, and I wanted to ask you specifically if you could talk about this intersection, this nexus between addiction and genius.
They're related, of course. We're talking about creativity, then certain levels of creativity require certain states of consciousness. Certain kinds of pressure, I would say. I know this body of mine needs a pressure. It works from the pressure. Creative pressure, creative tension. And so for some people who are too knotted up, they might find some value in drinking or doing other things to loosen themselves up and thus be relieved to, or released from their own stress to feel free enough to create. The idea of creativity is flow. We need to have flow. You need to be open and loose enough to be able to access what your demon is, or what your angel is, or what your, say, creative genius might be, if you have such a thing. If you believe in such a thing, and deep down inside of every human being is a state of soul which once accessed reveals itself as pure light. We can say sometimes that manifests as a genius. That means it can do things that the ordinary mind cannot access or do for itself. It needs help. So we're talking about people who need help to access their creativity. And so they do it. It's very common in the music world, very common in the artistic world, very common even in the scientific world. It's common in human beings. It's just common. That's it. You have to relieve yourself. You have to find your medicine, whatever that is. For some it's sex, for some it's coffee. For others it's food. It could be any kind of hobby, just so that there's enough freedom, release, so that your channels are open for the expression of creative intelligence and maybe products as well.
How did you toe that line in your career, and how did you learn to access the freedom of your language on your guitar without...
It's genetic. It's genetic in my case. Even when I don't want to play, and I stayed away from playing, I would never lose connection. It wasn't physical for me, it's psychic in a sense. And I remember when I would work with Pharaoh, I'd be away from the guitar for a long time, and I would get compliments saying, "Wow, you've been playing a lot." I'd say, "No, I haven't played in a long time." And so we're talking about a certain kind of mind that has access to, let's say, the creative flow in some cases, and it's a genetics base. The genes can play for you. And that's the theory I have. I think the genes play it.
Can you talk to the audience about the yogis that you looked towards for wisdom when you were younger, even though you saw your peers going off drinking and drugging?
Yeah, they would appear to me in dreams.
Psychic.
I come from dreamers, right? Psychic dreamers, native people. And so there are a lot of people who turn to the dreams for their inspiration and direction. So this is pretty common to me. My mother was a dreamer. She'd get, I would say, visions of the future and dreams. I mean, it's natural. It's not just my mother. It's just everybody has the ability to do that. It's native to the human being. Right?
How did she make that real to you? Like, what would she say to you as far as what she saw in the future?
She would just make comments that, "I think this is going to happen. I had a dream of this." And she would have her own, symbology. See, so various things would mean. Shoes would mean something. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of that because it's all relative. Toes would mean something. Teeth would mean something. So you have to be a dreams student in order to see how that works, and a student of your own phenomena. See, not just somebody else's dream symbology, but your own. Be interested in the dreams enough so that is revealed to you in no uncertain terms. You see it. You know what it is. And we're talking about the future, which brings up a controversial issue. And is that future already established? Or is the future in stone? Or what? We have to say, in some ways, it absolutely is. In other words, we can get to a level of timelessness where the past and the present and future are indiscernible.
Is that pure light? How did you access that?
I can't say I accessed it. Things just opened up for me. I was one of those peeps. I wasn't trying to do a damn thing. Never tried to play anything, but it just became obvious to me. See? That's what I speak about, and that's how I play. That's it. There's no secret beyond that. I just play. I think the drums opened me up to that when I was young. Very young, in fact. And I was free to do it, and I was on my own. So yes, drumming is key to unraveling and opening up levels of consciousness. So we can even say the chakras. It depends on the person. See? And people were suspicious that I was a reincarnated yogi in my family. They said, "No, he's not a regular guy, this guy. He seems like he's a yogi," because the mediums would say that they saw Chinese monks around me. And the only Chinese monks that I know are called Tibetan Buddhists. And so I was connected to the Tibetan Buddhists, and that has played a very important part in my monastic disposition, having been in the monastic before. So it's nature for me is to be monastic. It's natural. I don't feel I miss anything. And I don't need anything, basically, apart from vital functioning. I don't have ordinary habits. I think this is due to former yoga practice. And so we're talking about the release of early life vision and early life capability. I also have a serious handicap, but that never stood in the way of what I needed to do as a spirit. Okay? With the pain now, I can still get around the guitar more or less. Okay? For you, I played a little bit. Give you a sense that I have not.
I mean, just a little bit. It was better.
But that's a lot. I gave you a whole bunch there, man. In those few notes I played, you have to hear them properly. When you're handicapped, man, every little bit hurts. So
can you talk about the handicap and how it affected your playing and what that meant for playing with Pharaoh Saunders?
Well, listen. Without the handicap. This early life handicap, I couldn't play with the emotion I played with. See, so it was then a tool for remembering pain and playing with pain. Right? And it's physical, so it doesn't disappear, it's there. So thinking about music is already a painful memory. Mm-hmm. And I hear certain records, my hand, pain, it feels pain. It's like it's being played and tortured. Right. So it's a beautiful gift if you can do what I have been moved to do with it, well enough to play with some of these great musicians. I was honored and very humbled to be able to play with them. Mm-hmm. And keep up with them. I think the beauty is keeping up with the cats, not just playing with them.
Right.
Dealing with them, sword to sword. Yeah. All right, come on. All right, harder, faster, let's go. Right, run it. Mm-hmm. Right, that's what it is, putting it out there for you. It's not about competition, but it's giving it all you have. Not just playing to feel good or get fat, so to speak. No, this is a challenge. And for a person who couldn't play as I was, and all the time because of the pain, whenever I played, I wanted to get to it. Mm-hmm. Kept it for real. Mm-hmm. Played with Rashid several years, and he loved it because I was real. Mm-hmm. And he loved it, and that's all I can tell you, man. Right. He loved it, and I love playing with him too. Two drummers playing it, kicking it. Yeah.
Can you talk about the video you just made and the idea of the drummer as a yogi and what is that intersection?
Well, we're breathing beings. So we are like designed to use breath or be used by it. So then the issue is what is the function of the soul? Is it to be effect or is it to be cause? And so when we're talking about creating music, you need to be at the cause level. You need to know that you are a source. You're given the ability to be source of your own school. If you go deep enough, if you clear the path for yourself, see, if you're true to the impulse of freedom and liberation, then that's what you do. That's what I've done. Right? Not because I wanted to do it. That's what was made available to me. See? So I have, let's say, my own musical idea. Let's say, it's crazy. I'm not saying it's good. I won't ever say what I do is good, but it's valid. See, it is valid. It comes from my experience, my walk, which is to heal people. I come from the healers. So healing is consistent with my birthright. Right? Spiritual healers, my father's a musician. I believe he tried to heal himself with the music, but he didn't quite get there.
Can you talk about drumming as a way to get to a place of healing?
Yes, well, of course. Drumming is healing. It is basically healing, right? It is calming the mind and affecting the brain in terms of giving you pleasure, making you feel, not everybody, and maybe not all drumming, but certain drumming, especially if we're talking about cultural drumming, where you're moved to dance and enter ecstatic, let's say, peace. That's healing right there. That's also yoga. And guys play with, but when I was young, when I was in grade school, we had a little circle of young drummers. I mean, we would leave the body, so to speak, and we'd be floating around in space, and we were laughing at it. We didn't know what we were doing, but it would happen. So, right. Whoa, what is that? You could feel the lift, because when you switch over to the yoga traditions and the Eastern traditions, and getting out of the body is like normal. Play the flute and get out. It's normal. Mm-hmm. Not being stuck in the body, bound to the body, and being bound to the forces of time. That's not normal. That's culture. Mm-hmm. But that's not normal because you're bound. You're stuck to the earth. Mm-hmm. And everything that's given to us is to keep us stuck here, gravitated instead of levitated. So we then go to music for the levitation. You hear John Coltrane, you feel the rise right there. Yeah. You may not understand it, but the power that's coming and being expressed is really about the rise. And he was a yogi. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's yoga. That means you're focusing on what the instrument is to rise above yourself. Then we're talking about yoga as a form of elevation and transcending your bondage to materialism. And that includes body and gravitational influences and mostly cultural programs, which are all the same thing.
Because you talked about getting yourself out of ordinary habits.
You have to stop. It's radical. Mm-hmm. Just stop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's radical like that. That's it.
But did you
But
use
that's it.
music to get there, or
I was always doing music, so I didn't need music to get there in a certain way. But I had to stop my blood karma. See, the Puerto Rican karma, right? I had to stop it. The eating habits, the sexing habits, the drinking habits, the smoking habits, all the garbage habits, right? The toxic stuff. I had to stop, like in a snap. That's exercising a leap. Your right to leap beyond yourself. So it's easier said than done, but that's the best way to do it.
Did you have help with that? Or was it something that was just within you?
Well, yeah, I think that can come from drumming. So I have to put some responsibility on drumming. See, drumming can unravel your suffering. Drumming can unravel your self-consciousness. It can take you, depends on what your situation is. You can go way beyond yourself with other drummers, especially stronger master drummers. They're going to take you to the limits of your abilities. You're going to play way beyond your fingers, your blood, and your bones. Right? A serious drumming, right? Like where you go to the point of austerity. I'm not saying that's good. This is not about good. It's about knowing you need to get beyond yourself and your suffering and whatever you inherited from your family. That's the problem. So in order to do better or be better in your ability to relate to the universe or your family or society, you have to go beyond that in you which holds you back. Right? That's habit. Right? Which needs to be broken like that, instantaneously, like when I was in the military. When you get to the military, as I was, with the airborne rangers and these commando type peeps, there are no excuses. No way. It's like snap, boom. That means we're capable of doing that. Right? So, or you suffer punishment, or worse. So that's what the military feeds off of. Training, instantaneous. Hardcore classical training is the same thing. You don't think about it, you have to do it. And you better do it, otherwise you're not going to get to where you need to get to. So that's what we have to appeal to in ourselves. That is the master within.
Tisziji, did you receive, can you talk a little bit about institutionalization? Why you were institutionalized at one point in your life?
What is this, dirt night?
No, because he asked, did you get any help? And you said no, but I'm saying...
No. Yeah, what you're talking about is, it depends on what you mean by help. From where? Say.
A dear friend of mine, Pat Martino, was put into institutions because he was having these headaches, but it was manic. It was... the point is that institutionalization was very common.
Yeah, well, I was never that sick. Okay, I was never that sick. Was I put in an institution? Yes. Right? Was I put in there for a real problem? No. What was I guilty of? Asking too many questions. As a philosopher, that's what I do. I ask too many questions. Right? When we're talking about military situation, you're not supposed to ask questions. And so that's all I can say on that. Right. So it wasn't like I had any specific problems. I asked too many questions, which is what I do and what I've done. Go ahead.
Back to the experience of drumming. And, you talked a little bit about playing and what that can do and what that can mean for you as a player. But there's the flow of energy that can go out between whoever's playing the drum and who's listening to it. And can you talk about that interaction?
The circuit.
Yeah.
Well, the circuit. Yeah. Then we have to ask who's playing who. Are you playing, or is the audience playing you? Or differently, is the drum playing you? So where I come from, the drum plays you. And then whatever other influences there are, you can include that, and that becomes part of the process. And that's true in music in general. The audience has a very powerful influence on the music. As an obstructing force, making it difficult for the players to play it, or as an enlightening force, making it easier for it. And that means everybody's in the correct resonance. And so everything is easy, it's just floating, And sometimes that happens where you think you're not playing, right? You're being played by the situation.
Right.
Yeah. So relative to that, I like to have the right players, so there's no talking. So we don't need to talk. Right? We discuss at the beginning a couple of pieces or something. gives them direction, but the rest is in the playing. It's not about rehearsing. You're already overly rehearsed. Now it's time to let it go. And you have your opportunity on the bandstand to stand up for what it is in your case.
You come from a line of healers. I just interviewed Steve Kuhn, piano player, and he collaborated with you on an album. And he said, I asked him what he remembered about Tisziji. He said, the session itself is vague. He said, but I just want you to talk to the audience, because I was going to actually put this transcript up on Facebook, but I didn't, and now I know why, so I can ask you. Can you talk about how you healed Rockalam, Bob Moses?
Well, that wasn't like an instant zap, except that as soon as he heard me, he knew I was like part of the train thing. As soon as he heard it, he said, no, this cat is like, boom. He has said this on video.
To the peeps around the world, what's the train thing?
The train thing means having a certain soulfulness and screamingness and freedomness and mastery, virtuosityness that is characteristic of, let's say, the mastery of Coltrane.
Steve Kuhn said what was most inspiring to me about Tisziji is that he was able to help Rockalam get off drugs.
Well, I can think that's something, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's something. I've encouraged him to get into yoga. I've encouraged him to get into certain techniques. And so, to my knowledge, he has done that to whatever degree he can do it. I don't watch over him. When he comes, we talk. But it's mostly the music that does the healing for him.
I think for some that knew him maybe before you ever did, it is that much more amazing and profound.
Well, I think that my person has influenced him. We're talking about coming to a guy who's living a renunciate type of life, who's not around people, which is like the opposite of Bob Moses, right? Rockalam, he's a social creature, right?
Yeah, right.
But that's his function, that's his pleasure, that's his purpose, is to teach, share. And so he came to a reclusive type person, and he loved it. And so I guess I became an example for him of some sort. Yeah. And did I give him a hard time and bring the burn to him? Oh, yes, I did, many times. Was he roasted and toasted and roller-broiled? Yes, absolutely.
As Steve Kuhn calls him, rack of lamb. But he's a great drummer and a great man. But
yeah.
I mean, can you talk about the nonverbal components of healing?
This is it right now. It's nonverbal.
No, we're talking though.
No, you don't have to talk. You're talking. I'm not talking yet. All right, so there you have it. You just shut up. let the healing do what the healing does, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the nonverbal part, and that's also in music too. Some people can get off on lyrics, but others can't. Say, no, don't talk. Don't take my mind to that place. Let me just hear the music. Let the music talk.
Rafael, next question, please.
Well, I just, while playing or while performing music, the ability to listen is a great asset when you're playing with a group of people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, of course, listening is important in and out of music. We need to listen. That's what your ears are for. Not to listen to appearances, but to listen through appearances to realities. We need to hear beyond hearing, which is what I write about, what I speak about, based upon my system of heart fire sound, as I call it, which I'm writing about, which is not about just listening to music. It's about listening beyond your hearing, which is maybe the source of the music.
Say more about the system.
Yeah, well, it's we can say it's kind of like a meditative system, but it's really a yogic system. It includes chanting and breathing. It follows a yogic line of practice.
Involving music?
Oh yeah, as a musician, it's really for musicians, but it's for musicians who need to get beyond their training and their culturing, their roboticism, say, their let's say victimization by way of imitation to absurdity. And it's like killing your music. You're dead if you have to imitate everything. See? And so, yeah, this is going to influence Rock Kalam and maybe every other musician that comes before me. That's my purpose, is to say these things in the way that I say them. And play them in the way that I play them. I don't have a guitar fan club. I'm interested in it. I have no interest in the other people's music. I have enough to do here. It's given to me to do it. It must be done. I'm finishing up something now. I gave him a sample of my first guitar, Patriarch. That's like the third burning, right? In the Buddhism, you have the first turning, the second turning, the third turning. Well, I have the first burning, right? The second burning and the third burning, right? The first one is the Diamond Bible of Heart Fire Sound, which is the complete radical destruction of whatever a musician is supposed to be. Because we're not just musicians, right? We are also angelic beings. And what happens with the idea of music is you use it to materialize yourself and build your ego into elephantine, like a monster, right? And I say, no, that's not what the spiritual music is about. It's nothing about that, like that. It's nothing to do with yourself, except yourself has to be sacrificed in the process. And we're not talking about entertaining. I was with bands that were entertaining. Pharaoh was an entertainer.
You have a message?
This is about going beyond that programming. And it's wicked. It really is wicked. And the book has to be read to be believed. I wrote it when I was very sick and believing that I was going to pass over, so I felt an urgency to write it. Because I felt that music, for the most part, was just false conditioning. It wasn't enlightenment training by any measure of the stick. It prepared you to make money, go out and work. That's not enough.
Career training.
Yeah, which is great. I recommend it. It's perfect for that. But for me, as a monastic, I had to be true to my, I guess you might say, mission and impulse, which is to play wicked guitar, right? Wicked guitar, born of a broken hand, which is great, right? Reminiscent of Django, another guitar player, maybe. They needed an injury. It's great to have a tragedy. I love it, right? Many, many accidents, a lot of bloodshed. But to me, it's all about curing my hand and my music so that I can play the way I can play. Not that I want to play. It's the way that I can play. And it's not like other people, right? See, so that's something. You hear that in my playing. And Rock Kalam, probably more than anybody else, senses that and knows that, as well as anybody who's living.
How do you think about the aspects of music in a way that can be accessible for anyone, even if they aren't a so-called musician?
It's great. No, I'm in complete respect when it comes to like children, right? I have a son, Rebbe, who's a prodigy, and he's handicapped, but gifted, which is his balance. And he represents to me the handicapped legions of people who are so delicate, right, and so humble, and so beautiful, where they set a tone for how humans can be. See. And so they have this built-in innocence, right, that I worship. So they're more complete, even though they're handicapped. Sometimes mentally handicapped, sometimes physically handicapped. But when it comes to music, there are those in that sort of tribe, right, that are so fine-tuned to music. It's just beautiful. Broken, but clear. Radiantly clear when it comes to the music. And the feelings and the hearing and the melodies, they're very pure. They're really good musicians in that sense. Right? They're not contaminated by all the training and all the corruption in terms of like what's real, what's good or what's bad. We have a heart to tell us what that is for ourselves if it can be left alone to make those decisions for itself instead of influenced by school and family and culture for the most part. Right. Which is good, but that's not true. But it's good. It's a good start. Good place to begin, not a good place to end up. Culture is not here to enlighten you. It's to inform you. right? It gives you a good sense of judgment, right, as to where it can be or what it needs to be for some people. So I respect the culture, but I'm also encouraging people to go beyond that as a step on the path to enlightenment.
Right. How do we how do younger peeps that are not psychics and that don't come from a healing background, how do they break away from imitation? Because we've gone to that so far extreme. And some of that corruption, someone just chimed
Well,
in.
you have to need that. See, this is something that is
Explain
not,
about need. What is it? Because need
it has to be
is...
inborn. Yeah, you know what need means. You need water. What does that mean? Right? You need food. You need to urinate. It has to be a profoundly obvious movement inside your body and in your mind and maybe your heart. You have to have a need. People have a need for a certain kind of music. Rakalam has a need for this kind of music. So he goes as far as saying he was born to play this music. And I agree. And that's great that he could see his purpose in this music. See? And he used to go listen to John Coltrane. There's nobody I know of that can compare to John Coltrane. But, you know, I mean, on a certain level, but we all have the opportunity to be as bold as John Coltrane. See, we have a need to be as free as he assumed himself to be. He had a need for it. That's the need we need to get back to. And that's the need to be free. See? Come in.
Can you talk about, you know, a musician who maybe has that structured formal training,
Yeah.
and
It's a good place to start. You
right.
got to do that.
And
Yeah.
what is the what have you seen musicians go through to break out of that? What does that
Well,
what does that entail?
Well, a lot of the musicians approach me and say, well, we want to play like you. Right? And they said, I said, well, good luck. Yeah, take all my records, do what you can with it. I don't care what you do. You know, play the way you need to play. Right? Do what you can. That's what it is. You have to liberate yourself. By all means, any means necessary. But the issue is, guys have been playing my records, they still can't play like you. I said, that's because I'm me and you're you. Right? You have your own karma that comes through your body and your mind. Your own garbage. If you don't clean up your garbage, then that garbage is going to determine, right, how you play, how you sound, and where you go. But if you clean up the inside of the cup, so to speak, then great players will be drawn to you, as they were in my case, right? Because of a purity, like Rashid would say, there's a certain innocence and purity in my playing. He called it the virgin factor. Yeah.
What did he mean by that?
What do you think?
I think it's just that you're creating music from this place of like pure authenticity.
Well, from bones and blood.
Yeah.
You know, pain, a broken body. That's a good place. I'm not saying everybody needs to do it, and that's like good music. I don't go that far at all. But that's what I was given, so I honor it. Fortunately, I was able to bring it up to a certain level where other people can dig it. And I had the companionship of some very good people. Right? And we didn't stay together, but we crossed paths, and that to me is good enough. I like doing what I have to do on my own without having to refer to other people necessarily, but of course I'm still working on occasion, and keeping the purity. That means you have to be really in touch with you, right? Right? You have to have a disposition to get into the you of your reality, the you beyond you, right? Like say this, the inner you, right? The pure you, right? Not the one concerned about time, space, energy, matter, and mind, exactly, but something deeper than that. See? And we have that. And under extreme conditions, you're going to feel that you is very powerful, very real. Right? Like in native culture, you got to get out into the jungle or the forest, and then wait till the animals come and come for you to eat you. You start to realize you have some power and strength you didn't know you had when that crocodile gets close to your foot, or the snake or the python gets too close to your bed. Right? And so we have power in this, but it has to be aroused in some cases.
Have you worked with people to do that?
Second?
Have you worked with people to get to that place of arousal?
Yeah, I call it the burn.
That's the burn, yeah.
That's what the burn is. I mean, stripping everything away from you that holds you back and keeps you in mediocre land. Like wanting to be like just an ordinary average guy with no fire in your gut or in your head or whatever, your heart. See, the idea here is burn. That's one of my themes, burn. The heart, fire, sound. good term. I can't call it jazz. It's jazz. No, it's hot fire sound. Very bold, distinct, and true of the warrior. Nature in everybody. No BS. And pure, and loving, kind, and fierce as needed.
Can you talk to the peeps about when you bumped into Miles Davis?
Yeah. What do you want to hear about that? Of all people.
Just what was happening. I mean,
Man,
there was
of all
one
people,
time. There was one.
Of all people. Well, I got to play opposite him back in the day, and so, but that was in Canada. He had a band of great players. But on what is it, Waverly Street, Broadway, I'm walking fast. That's sometimes what you do in New York. And I bump into somebody, right, who had a leather suit on it, and it was Miles Davis. and he backed up because we hit hard, not bad, and I put my fist up. We peeled away from each other. I knew it was Miles. He didn't know me from Adam. Sort of like a coincidence. And that was around the time when I also had an opportunity to speak to John Scofield. Not that he knows me, but I met him. He was playing with David Liebman. And David Liebman asked me to join the band with him, Scofield, and Richard Byrack. I said, I don't know these cats, but I said, yeah, I don't know about that. I was working with Pharaoh Sanders, so I wasn't really available. But it was good to be in that company. And then Miles wanted John Scofield to play. So I've known a few people, know great people, and I wish them the best, but that's not what I'm doing. That's a phase I had to go through in terms of socialization and musical awareness. And, but that's not what I'm doing. This is more yogic in a sense. It's more, what's the word we're talking about here? Spiritual, not material in that sense. I mean, everybody is that, but this is not about the world in a general sense. I'm not a movie goer, particularly. I'm not a club goer. You don't see me in the venues unless I'm working. Then I'll show up in the venue. I have no interest in it. It's not fun for me. I see the darkness of the times there. And I remember Contrain's words about the same thing. You know, and you have to get away from, the whole social thing. And so he had to, record his own music, obviously. He had to evolve to that point where it's you and your God. See? You and what the deity is in your case. See? If you have that kind of experience, not everybody has a deity knocking at their door, visiting them at night or in their dreams. So sometimes you have to create that. Say, no, I want a deity, and you pick a deity. Say, I want to be around a yogi, and I'm going to pick a yogi. Say, you start to resonate, you start to relate to it, and try to bring it close to you. And that's like the basis of religious practice and devotion. Okay. So same thing in music, and people worship Beethoven and Mozart. They want to be exactly like that. And so what they do is capitalize on what they perceive to be the connection between them. See? And so you can be brought up and out of yourself if you're attuned to the right person, the right force. And that's how we evolve, actually. It's just going higher and higher. Say, okay, I went through that, I did that, and I want to play. I played Charlie Parker stuff. Say, I want to play the next level. Maybe it's Sonny Rollins, maybe Miles Davis, and then you eventually want to get to Coltrane and throw the whole thing away, and toss it all in the garbage. There's nothing more to play. Right? Yeah, it's gone. You have to get to gone land. Right.
But he drank himself to death.
Oh, who was that?
Train.
Well, I think he played himself to death as much as he drank himself to death.
He overworked himself too.
Yeah, that's
Jimi Hendrix did that too. You were compared to Hendrix by somebody.
Yeah, it's a few people. It doesn't matter. I'm still here.
That's true.
I still have a lot of work to do. I haven't done anything yet. That's the good attitude.
How do you feel like you're just getting started?
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Every morning.
Every morning.
Every morning, man. It's a new lap, another lap to go on a new round of beauty, adventure, and frustration with the world. Let's say I'm being playful. Frustration with politics, right? The idiocy that seems to rule these times is almost hilarious. right? That we can fall so low into kind of like barbarism, right? Racism. Oh my goodness.
Barbarism is exactly it. Comment, Raph?
Yeah. Do you have a few more notes for us?
No, sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys have been very kind and generous to me.
It's beautiful. Tisziji Munoz, thank you so much for being a spiritual leader for me and
thank you.
making me more mentally strong every day. I think that your healing powers continue to spread. And Rafael, it's really an honor to be here with you, man.
Absolutely.
Great to be here. Thanks, Jake.
Love always, guys.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Love to the world. Peace.